Got back to practice today as the Four Nations begins its final run. The final will be on Thursday between the United States and Canada. Our own Paul Hamilton has reported the three Sabres who did take part in the tournament and were eliminated, Rasmus Dahlin, Henri Jokiharju, and Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, have not returned just yet. And then outside of the Four Nations, Mattias Samuelsson has returned, while Beck Malmstein has not. But to the Four Nations, we do have some injury news ahead of Thursday's final between the U.S. and Canada. Defenseman Charlie McAvoy is out as he's dealing with an upper body injury. But with McAvoy out, Vancouver defenseman Quinn Hughes is joining the United States. Elliot Friedman, though, is reporting another injury will have to occur for Hughes to get put in the lineup. And then some good news for the United States as both Kachuk brothers are expected to play on Thursday. In the NFL, Step 1 of the NFL offseason begins today. The franchise tag window opens at 4 and will go until March 4th. The Bills not expected to use the tag. They have not done so since 2016 with offensive tackle Cordy Glenn, but other teams such as the Bengals with wide receiver T. Higgins are expected to. We'll see if this materializes, and if so, how soon. And then in college hoops, UB men host Western Michigan at 7, pregame getting underway at 6:30. You can listen to that game over on our sister station, the Bet 1520. And a reminder, this week is your last chance to go to Italy with Sal. Don't miss out. Go to WGR550.com and click under Top Stories or call Travel Brilliant at 716-417-7824. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Paddock Chevrolet celebrating 90 years of business. I'm Zach Jones for WGR Sports Radio 550.
And the Bulldog.
How many bees is a swarm? Is 2 a swarm or 3? Whatever. How many does it have to be? And
I feel like 7.
It's Mike Schopp.
How many times do you have to be stung to have been swarmed? And I was like, dude, I got swarmed. I got stung only once, but I was swarmed.
And the Bulldog.
You insist you were swarmed.
There were bees, man, like plural, big, lots of S's. Lots of E's and S's. Bees. That was not
bees.
Fun. Right. That was not fun.
On WGR.
Hey, man, that kind of hurt.
Sports Radio 550.
All right, away we go. Welcome in on a sunny, frigid Tuesday. Glad to have you all with us here. I am the Bulldog. Mike Schopp has the week off. Nate Geary sitting in today and tomorrow. Glad to have him along for the ride here for a couple of days here. How you holding up?
Me, or are you talking to the people?
You.
Me, okay. I'm all right. I'm struggling through the third deep winter we're going through right now. I told you before we came on last week. It was like Tuesday, Wednesday of last week. If you reversed it a year before, I was golfing in February in Buffalo twice that week. So, yeah, anytime. Anytime now.
I'm dreading the backyard. The dog.
Fair.
It's been, how long have we had a snow cover for? It's
my sister,
more than a month.
My sister's got 2 dogs, and she's pregnant, so she was like,
it's just going to be
frozen poop.
No, the problem is it won't be frozen because you're not going to get to it until the thaw. So then it's going to be gross, runny, disgusting poop. And, twice a day for 6 weeks worth. That's going to be fun. Yeah. Yes, I do not. I haven't been taking my dog around the neighborhood on the icy covered sidewalks. So he's roughing it in the backyard, and that is going to be a nightmarish scene when it does present itself. I looked because you made this comment about a year ago last week, having played golf twice. March 5th. Was my first round of 2024 at Delaware Park last year,
good.
March 5th.
Let me tell you,
you're probably right.
It's not looking good for you.
Yeah, even if it started melting right now, I think it would take a little while for everything to stabilize and things to come around. But anyway, we'll get there. You want to? We're going to get to reverse AFC power rankings. Fear not. We have appointed duties that need to be taken care of, so we will take care of that. Welcome back to our stream fans. We're back up and running here here after missing, I guess, a total of 3 shows, the 2 morning shows, and yesterday's version of this show was not streaming, but we're back. So glad to have the chat room back up and running there, and I look forward to lots of banter about Sal's Italy trip. You want to make up injuries for Jake Sanderson while we got a little time here before we get into reverse AFC power rankings?
Athlete's foot. I'm feeling like an athlete's foot.
Something. I mean, it's going to be conspicuous, but something has to happen here.
Yeah.
Or, just somebody's going to have to get a bug or something. That's plausible, right? There's been some flu going around this thing. McCarr was sick, missed the first game against the U.S.
Yep.
So Quinn Hughes has been called in, like one of the best defensemen in the world, who was missing this tournament because of injury at the outset, but I guess he's okay now. So he's on his way to Boston, but he can't play unless somebody else gets hurt.
And again, not injured. Hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we got this. Yeah.
Do we have to show blood?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so.
Although I do want to tell you that today I did feel like I had like a crazy flashback of the Jay McKee thing with Charlie McAvoy having an infection, and it's like, it's just an infection. It's not expected to be long. Yeah, okay, we've seen that one before.
We've done that.
Sure, yeah.
We know all about that here.
Yes, like a little scar tissue.
I want to say thank you for reminding me of that, but no, you didn't need. I didn't even think of that. You didn't need
I did.
to.
It immediately brought me back to Jay McKee.
That's very upsetting. Well, they're going to have to figure something out.
The Doug Janik era.
And I'm not here to complain about the rules. The rules are the rules. The roster construction. Can you tweak this and make it better? A little more flexibility. Sure, that would be good. But I'm trusting they'll find their way to some reason to get Quinn Hughes in the lineup on Thursday night when the U.S. and Canada play for the Four Nations Face-Off Tournament Championship. We'll get lots of time. Do you care at all who wins?
Sure.
You do?
Yeah.
Because I don't. I love it. I can't wait. I'm excited. But
you're just excited for the actual product, not necessarily.
The game. Yeah, I don't have a. I guess I'd prefer the U.S. win instead of Canada, but I don't know. I love Canada.
Yeah, same.
I don't find myself rooting. It's not like rooting against Russia or something.
Sure. I guess I would fall under the category of thinking about, the Olympics the last time that it mattered. There were NHL players in it. The connection for me was Ryan Miller was having.
Well, that's right. I definitely cared about that.
I cared a lot about that. Before there were any Sabres players, even back when the Olympics were, I think, probably at its peak, right? When you've got the Madanos and the. Mm-hmm. I still found it I'm going to root for the U.S. because it's Olympic time. But it's not the Olympics right now. It's just this awesome mid-season tournament. So I guess I'm not up for the. I know a lot of people really clung to the political aspect of it. People that have never really watched hockey before were like, wow, people, they hit and there's fights and people are chirping each other's national anthems. Okay. Listen, if for nothing else, the NHL found a way to create a little bit of buzz about their sport, which they haven't done in ever. Yeah. So that itself, I think this tournament, even though short-lived, is going to, I think, do more for hockey and the display of the true stars in the league. I think, and maybe it was you guys talking about this, it's been so long since I can remember watching all-star level teams play at that type of level. There was something on the line. And I yearn for competitive hockey more now. I'm like, this is awesome. I do like hockey? Wait. I'm not hate watching this?
We have to get to the reverse AFC power rankings by rule, but you've touched on a couple of very interesting things here, I think. One, Four Nations face-off. Okay, the trophy looks really cool, but the Olympics would be different. Miller, 2010. The last time I did not have facial hair was because during the second intermission of the gold medal game in the 2010 Winter Olympics, I was plucking hairs out of my face during the second period, and it kind of started to hurt. But I was just like twirling whiskers and pulling them, and I thought, this is like getting close to like self-harm. I'm gonna go shave.
Wait, you shaved in the intermission?
Yeah. Is that why they lost? I shaved my beard off
Going into the third period
of the gold medal game in 2010.
What is wrong with you?
I was hurting my face. Nate.
Okay, well, you could have lasted
yeah.
another half hour.
No, you could tell where he was
overtime.
at. He wasn't thinking that clearly. You could tell. Yeah.
That is insanely selfish. Like, I'm a superstitious guy. I think I've told you this.
I guess I didn't realize to this level.
That's selfish, what you did.
Yeah, the temperature in the room here changed dramatically when I just admitted that. The look on his face just now.
You definitely don't do that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I did.
Yeah.
So
you did.
Yeah.
That would be like me changing my shirt during the second, like at halftime, after I did the halftime show.
But I mean, just cut it out. All right. Anyway, all right. I
learned a lot about you today. It's good.
I don't think it'll happen again. But
certainly hope
having a guy, the goalie, right? That's your guy, right? Yeah. I mean, there's a lot there. This tournament, a bunch of the best players are former Sabres. So, I mean, we've got that going for us.
Which almost made me consider not wanting to watch it.
Some of the best players were almost Sabres, like McDavid. But I don't. I got Dahlin's on Sweden. He's coming home. Joki Harju, Luukkonen. I don't have a horse in the race, right?
Yeah.
It's really, unless I were going to root against Eichel, which I'm not going to do that.
Can't get there.
That would be dumb.
Yep.
So all those things sort of line up to being I'm sort of passive about the outcome, and the Olympics will probably be different.
I think the Olympics will be different. I think this is a really good precursor. It's like a good little taste of, oh yeah, like all-star teams can be really fun. Watching the best,
right?
Like absolute best players play is awesome.
Well, speaking of giving a taste, we've already hinted at it. Enough fooling around. Let's get to it. It's time for Reverse AFC Power Rankings, which are powered by Empire Electric, your residential neighborhood electrician. Visit EmpireElectricians.com. We are official here for the 18th of February, 2025. 16.
Why don't you kick us off? Why don't you toss one into the ether?
Well, I'm going to say Cleveland. Because I don't really know where Cleveland is going, where Cleveland is headed. I like the coach. It's not a talentless roster, but they're, I think, at gunpoint going to end up trading Myles Garrett. And they still have a $96 million sinkhole with a quarterback with one leg.
And one arm.
Right.
Tough to have both of those things.
Right. And I just don't know what the plan is there. I feel like this year is just going to be like accumulate assets, hope we can fix things sooner rather than later, but I don't know that this year is it. I mean, I guess they could go. Could they go sign Sam Darnold or something? Do they have the money to do that? They can't.
I don't know that they do. Like, if they end up like Cam Ward, and he's like a fun young, like he ends up being, this year's version of Daniels or Bo Nix, and all of a sudden they're. I just think they're in such a competitive like division. They're 16. Browns.
Okay, Cleveland at 16. 15.
Tennessee.
Yeah. They're a lot like Cleveland. They just don't have the stain of employing Deshaun Watson.
I do think they're going to employ Aaron Rodgers here pretty soon, and that is nightmare fuel. Him in that uniform is gross.
Yeah, that's going to be
He's not going to play well, but the look of him in that uniform is going to be awful.
He definitely is. Somebody is definitely going to take him on.
Yeah.
Yeah, teams are desperate enough.
I think it's more likely to be the Rams, but yeah, I could see Tennessee being a team. So I think the Rams are going to trade Stafford.
Wow. Giants?
I should say wow. Like it's been speculated on. I can't.
I think they're just going to do it. They got to rip the Band-Aid off.
And like Aaron Rodgers is a stopgap.
Yeah, and then they're going to try to accumulate their picks move all the way up and get their guy next year. Seems risky, but Rodgers is cheap, and he's probably not. He'd probably be pretty good under McVay, to be honest. I would hate it. It would be awesome. It'd be the worst pairing of all time. But great for entertainment.
Does McVay want to give up control of his team though? Like that seems like a tough one for me.
I think that Rodgers would know he's not walking in there like he was in New York. There are 31 teams that would demand some respect. Mm-hmm. He went to the one where he knew that, he'd be the man for right and wrong, and he was certainly something.
More on the Jets coming up at 4 o'clock when Dan Leverfeld, longtime Jets observer and writer, Jets Confidential, has been a regular guest of ours for many, many years on the Jets, at least twice a year, if not 4 times a year, a couple times in the offseason, a couple times during the season. Anyway, Dan will be with us at 4 to sort of get a roadmap of where the Jets may be going. 14. So Tennessee is at 15. 14. I'm going to say until further notice the Raiders belong here. They also could maybe pull Aaron Rodgers into their boat if they'd like.
The bottom 3 feel pretty good. Like that, like any combination of those 3 until one of them secures some quarterback at some point. I think those are your bottom feeders right now.
And the Raiders are in a weird spot because they're not even a top 3 pick. They're 6. So they're not going to probably be there for Shador or Cam. And then all of a sudden it becomes, does Milroe impress at the combine enough for the physical traits to come out?
There it is.
Or
and Bulldog is hoping that's
he's,
the case.
He's hoping and praying.
Big
or
time.
Does Jackson Dart? Because he's kind of getting a little bit of
Jackson
yell
Dart
about
it's been a Jackson Dart week. I'm seeing some film, but I did listen. There was some Jalen Milroe love out there over the weekend. So believe me, that's not escaping my attention. All right, the Raiders are at 14. This is reverse AFC power rankings, ladies and gentlemen, powered by our friends at Empire Electric. 13. Suggestions,
the
ideas,
Jets.
New York Jets.
Okay. I'm just looking to get Pittsburgh, move Pittsburgh up down
the board.
Down the board. Thank you. Because Mike is always like this is 2 years running. Like Pittsburgh is in the teams.
Yeah.
Like they're gonna
win
9 games again.
games.
It's just like, what are we doing here? I love how this year. Should we make them 12? Pittsburgh, or is it too soon?
I kind of want to. I don't know what their quarterback position is, and I don't think they're going to go for Darnold.
Too soon? Okay, we'll wait. I'll save it. 12. I'll say Jacksonville at 12.
Yes. Frankly, I might say they probably should have gone already, but okay. I kind of forget about Jacksonville and their ineptitude.
The coach came off
very weird.
Right?
Yep.
I'm okay to push back on that just because coaches have come off as weird before and then hit. Campbell hit
Adam Gase.
Weird. There's the negatives, but even Nick Sirianni came off as weird, and he still kind of stays weird. But
everybody
he makes it work.
Kind of hates Sirianni, but he does.
He makes results.
It work. Yeah, he does get results.
Campbell came off weird, but in a crazy, endearing, the Neanderthalish kind of way.
Parts, yeah.
That it's totally been undone by his handling of the team and situations. He
had more Gase vibes.
This Cohen guy was more Gase than it was. It was just Duval.
Never forget the eyebrow raise.
It was the eyebrow and
the eyebrow raise.
Yeah, it was.
What are we doing here?
Was.
I'm just trying to imagine that dude in front of a room of 60 dudes. A lecture hall, laying it out there. And, I don't know. Again, because it's been a weird moment. We all have them.
5 seconds really is why they are where they are in our reverse power
right.
rankings.
Okay, Jacksonville at 12, 11.
I'm still in Pittsburgh.
Can we pick someone else other than Pittsburgh here?
There are a number of teams left.
Justin Fields. You think he's going to lead them to 9 wins?
Here's the thing about Pittsburgh. I was going to say last turn, but now we're talking about Pittsburgh again, only one space up the board. Anyway, last year around this time, wasn't it, the building can't decide whether to proceed with Mason Rudolph or Kenny Pickett. And then both They blew that up and traded for Wilson and then or signed Wilson and then traded for Justin Fields like within 24 hours of one another. So now today I saw a report. There's a divide in the building about whether it's Russell Wilson or Justin Fields, right? Tomlin wants Fields. Ownership prefers Russ. So I'm now expecting something completely off the board to happen in Pittsburgh because it's the same time. It's the same track as last year.
I would like to nominate someone that I think has an even worse quarterback situation. The Colts. And I don't think they're everything else around the quarterback is also worse than Pittsburgh. Give me Indy here instead of Pittsburgh for sure.
I'm writing it down.
Okay.
I'm respecting that.
Okay. I think we can go Pittsburgh here, though.
Pittsburgh at 10?
There we go.
Yes. It's out of the teens, still double digits. We're respecting Mike's, hatred while also pressing the boundaries a little.
Okay, 9. We got to hustle. We screwed around too much at the beginning. Go figure. 9. I will say New England at 9.
Yeah, cap space and high pick can only get you so far.
Cap space established, like they have their franchise quarterback, but their coach is good. Like I like how I feel the Steelers are probably going to be good for 9 or 10 wins. I think there's a really good chance that Vrabel's floor is probably very similar to Tomlin's. I think they'll get 8 or 9 wins at a floor. And maybe
I wonder if the roster has so much
work to do
to make up for, but I'm thinking, could it be like Chargers with Harbaugh 1 year? But I think there was more there.
There was probably more there. I think the coach wasn't getting enough out of that roster.
Yeah.
So where are we at? 8 now?
New England's 9, so now we are at 8. Yes.
Dolphins?
Yeah. I think they are so quickly heading towards just an implosion. I know Tyreek Hill walked his statement back talking about how he spoke to his mom and she basically yelled at him. I get it. But
I agree.
I think McDaniel kind of showed too how limited he is.
They're very close to
as a coach. Yeah. And they're built so poorly.
I'll watch that too from afar.
Speaking of the Dolphins, at 4:30 today, an old friend, a former Bills beat guy for ESPN.com, Marcel Louis-Jacques, will join us. That's at 4:30. Little AFC East today. Mm-hmm. I don't know. It's almost like somebody planned this.
Just happened to this.
What a world. What a thing. Okay, 7.
Chargers.
Who? Chargers? I'll listen to the Chargers here.
Chargers?
Sure.
Yeah. Chargers. 6? Is that where we're at?
Yes.
I'm going to go Bengals here. I need to see that defense actually get better. I need to see some improvement there.
I would have really probably liked to have the the Bengals before the Chargers, but
the
to your point,
Chargers have been written.
Bengals are here. Bengals have to be next. I think we probably kept the Bengals alive for too long, but
it's Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase there, man. That's the power. Zach Taylor might also be a bad coach.
I think he's not a good coach.
Are they going to keep keep all these guys?
No. They're going to keep Higgins. I don't think they're going to
keep Higgins either.
Well, they're going to tag him.
Tag and trade.
They're going to tag, but I think they are. This is a good conversation for. They are towing a line of we're going to be the first team to put 2 franchise tags on a wide receiver that doesn't probably really want to be here. He wants to go get paid. And they already don't pay players, and they already have weirdly done some stuff in public with their best player. They are towing a line in Cincinnati of we have a really good quarterback and people want to be here, and soon people are going to remember the franchise you are.
Yep.
They're towing that line. So yeah, Bengals. 6. 5. Houston?
I kind of want to go Denver.
Oh, that's right, Denver. Houston. I'd like to go Houston here. I think Denver's
on
moving.
The right track.
I think they're moving.
I'm with you. Houston, I'm not sure what's going on there.
Yeah. The weird Bobby Slowick thing.
Right.
Yeah. Houston.
Those edge rushers are nice, though.
No Tank Dell probably next year. Diggs is going to be gone. Their O-line's a disaster. Yeah.
All right, well, then Denver's got to be
Denver.
4, right?
Denver.
What is going on? It's a little wild to me that Denver's. They were 6 last week, 4 this week. What?
They're moving.
Hey, good for 40-year-old Bo Nix there.
4. 3.
He can't access his 401k without penalties. So That's nice.
Buffalo here.
Chiefs. Who'd you pick?
I'm going to put the Chiefs here.
All right.
I didn't last week. It went Buffalo, KC, Baltimore.
I did not like that.
I did not like that either. I don't really have a reason to put Buffalo below Kansas City.
I have no reason to put them below Baltimore.
Who's going to be 2? Buffalo's going to be 2?
No, I think Baltimore's going to be 2.
You're going to put the Bills 1?
I think so.
I went on the record. I said Buffalo 3.
Mm-hmm. That's fair.
I'm going to say Buffalo 2 then.
I'll go Buffalo 2 then.
I can't in good conscience preside over a program that puts the Bills at the top spot.
Mike will not be nice to us next week.
I don't care about that. I just, it's
They beat,
my name's on the sign.
They beat the Ravens pretty recently.
And the Chiefs beat the Bills.
They did, but
Got you there a little bit.
I think it's how we all feel about where the Chiefs are and where they're going.
That might be right to the extent, too, where I feel like Baltimore is like just a sports psychiatrist away from being like 15-2 and running to the Super Bowl.
It is written. KC 3, Buffalo 2, Baltimore 1. All right, everybody, how'd we do? Reverse AFC Power Rankings again, powered by the nice folks at, Empire Electric. Your residential neighborhood electrician. Visit empireelectricians.com. 803-0550 is the number. Nate Geary is in for Mike today and tomorrow. We can pick up on this Bengals conversation you were just hinting at. I want to get your thoughts on the pecking order with the Bills and contract extensions for guys that are now eligible, certainly highlighted by the last week or so's worth of social media activity from a certain running back. We got a lot to get into with Nate. We haven't had time together since before the Bills lost to the Chiefs, if I remember correctly. Did we work? I think we worked together one day that week before the AFC title game, and then not since. So a lot to pour over with Nate as we get up and rolling here on a Tuesday. Again, the number is 803-0550 if you'd like to join in. Plenty of room for you. Dan Leberfeld on the Jets at 4. Marcel Louis-Jacques on the Dolphins at 4:30. In between, just us hanging out, talking some football and some hockey and probably some golf and bad TV shows, all today here on WGR.
We know you.
each year. We just got new TV deals, and, we all want to stay together. So we're all going to do what it takes to do that. And, we have great players that have done great things and deserve to be paid. They're going to be paid what they're worth, whether we do it or somebody else. I hope we do it. I think, we've had the discussions that the guys are going to get paid that need to get paid. And so it's a big offseason for the Bengals.
That is Bengals quarterback Joe Burrow. He, of course, has already been paid, but pretty notably, his number 1 and number 2 wide receivers, both of whom I think are positioning themselves as though they should be paid like number 1s, are looking for contracts. Jamar Chase was eligible last offseason. Nothing happened. T. Higgins was franchised last year. The word is they're going to franchise him again. They've got some time on that. Today at 4 o'clock, I think, is the first day you can start laying that tag down, but then they've got like a week, 10 days, whatever. It's before free agency begins that that window closes. So I wouldn't expect a rush there because you've got time to still work out a contract with guys. The thing that's interesting about the Bengals, Nate, and you alluded to wanting to get maybe more into them, so let's do that for maybe a couple minutes here, and then we'll segue into talking about the Bills. But I want to pretend as though this is the Bills that have this problem, right? Mm-hmm. So the quarterback obviously wants his guys. They've got a premier edge rusher that needs a contract adjustment. Yep. They've got a number 1, clearly one of the very best wide receivers. If
not like the best.
In Jamar Chase. Higgins is maybe the best number 2 receiver in the league. I have questions about whether I would want to commit to him as a number 1 at that money, but certainly somebody would do it if he hits the market. I don't think there's any question about that. He becomes somebody's number 1 wide receiver if he hits the open market. And so there's Burrow talking about wanting to keep it all together. He's got his money. He's got his big contract. And yes, the cap is going up, and there's always ways, what a lot of people, there's always money in the banana stand, right? Would you want the Bills to pay on, let's say Gabe Davis were T. Higgins. No, you know what? Let's just say these guys are on the Bills, right? Chase and Higgins are on the Bills. Wouldn't you be inclined to? I have to choose. I have to choose one. I'm not going to do what Miami did, which is pay huge money to my quarterback and huge money to my 2 wideouts, and then scramble around for the rest of my team. I think I'm going to choose, and maybe the sooner the better. Because T. Higgins has to know, like, the meter's running. Every time he plays, he runs the risk of suffering some kind of grievous long-term injury that will forever alter his ability to get the big contract with the big money. This is a second offseason in a row they're playing hardball with him. I'll be surprised if they reach a long-term agreement with him because I think they probably don't want to because of what I'm saying. Like, would you be advocating for signing 2 receivers at $28 to $35 million a year?
Absolutely not. Especially after what I watched Josh Allen do this year with nothing close to anyone that's really as good as Higgins, much less Chase. And that's really where I think as a franchise you have to sort of get to because Joe Burrow's a unique quarterback. He needs an elite offensive line. 2 of the guys that they have paid big money to on that offensive line are useless and they need to get rid of them. Alex Kappa, and probably Ted Karras, too. I mean, 2 combined $17 million between those 2, not working. Orlando Brown Jr. was not a good signing for them. He's making a ton of money. He's making $15 million this year. So Hendrickson's at $18 million. He's basically saying either extend me at the money that I would deserve or I'm out. He's 31. On the other side, Sam Hubbard is like 32. Also probably needs to get an extension as well. They have so many holes to fill on the defensive side of the ball. So many. They need to revamp the offensive line significantly. All of this aside, did you know that not one time in the franchise's history, not one time have they restructured a contract? I did the research. They have not restructured one contract. They do not.
How do they live?
They do not because they haven't been good.
Century in the NFL.
They've
been
incredible. Good. And they refused to pay Carson Palmer. They let him go. They traded him. They paid Joe Burrow. And Joe Burrow's cap hit is going to be basically this is the smallest cap hit he's going to have for the next couple of years at $46 million. It balloons to like 55, 57 over the next couple of years. He's 29. Can't move. Needs an elite offensive line. And you're going to need your elite receiver. They screwed up immensely not getting Chase extended last offseason when he first became eligible, because what Justin Jefferson made in that contract, it's not going to be, I at least need that. It's going to be 10% more,
exceed that, right.
15% more. He's going to reset the market. So and they're probably not going to extend him this year. They're probably going to wait till next year. So they are, in terms of organizations, the money they spend, they're the poorest team in the league.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was on this program, it was the morning show, as like Brett Coleman was talking about how when you make these moves,
you need to have the cash
in escrow.
Right.
They don't have the cash.
Right.
So that's why they don't restructure a lot of these deals. That's why they don't kick the can down the road. And they're looking at a situation now where they've got a quarterback at $46 million that's going to be $53 next year. And Joe's talked about, we're going to do whatever it takes. Are you willing to take a pay cut? Because if you're not, they're probably not going to do what it takes to keep these guys around. Higgins is going to get the tag this year. He probably, because the NFL is this way, it would be a tag and trade. I think the idea there would be is because they're not going to let him walk for nothing, except on a second franchise tag. Do you know what that number is going to be?
$26 million.
Yeah, that's not a tradable contract. Like, you have to have a team that's going to take that on, that has the space available, and then you get your extension in place. There are plenty of teams with $26 million available. But, I just think that you're decreasing. If they were going to make the trade, they should have did it last year. Everything that I've watched them do, it's like they don't know they have an unbelievable quarterback and that they should be doing everything they can to figure out how to maximize this window they have. They've missed the playoffs now. He was injured last year, 2 years ago. But, they've missed the playoffs 2 straight years after making a Super Bowl. So, yeah, if I'm the Bengals, for me, it is, how do I dramatically remake my team in an offseason? Because for me, Hendrickson's got to go. You got to get rid of 2 starting offensive linemen, which means you have to replace said offensive linemen. You have almost nothing on your defensive line. You have Logan Wilson, who's a good linebacker. You're going to lose your other guy who just came out this way, Jermaine Pratt, who's not really that good anyways. He's going to go. They signed Geno Stone. He's probably got, they have, that's why I wanted to bring them up the reverse power rankings list a little bit.
Yeah.
I do not think this is a team, I know how their fans talked, and it was all about, oh, man, you're lucky the Bengals weren't in it. And maybe that's right because their offense is so good.
Yep.
That roster, they've got $46 million in space as it stands right now. What makes you think they're going to spend to that? I don't think they're going to spend to that. They're kind of like the Sabres, except they've got really good players that haven't forced their way out yet. They are one neck injury away from being the Sabres.
This all kind of works for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the news today, though, is we're keeping the band together, though, right?
Sure. And if they do, they will put out there a worse defense than they had this year and probably a worse offensive line. Because you're talking, let's just say, $35 million a year for Jamar Chase. That's probably a little conservative. $35 million. 25 for Higgins? 22? Hometown discount, 20. 35, 20, and 50. Is that 35% of your salary cap on 3 players that are all playing the same side of the ball? I just think the justification of keeping Higgins doesn't make sense.
I 100% agree. They should. Well, I mean, I guess they kind of tried. They drafted Burton last year, who
stinks.
Try not drafting insane people.
Yeah,
right. Do a little more work there and stay away from all the red flag guys. Because you should have been trying to do what I think a sane team would do, which is replace the guy who's too good for you to keep, which is what Higgins has become for them. And I think they have botched. They've botched it all. So if they keep it all together, I think look out below because, like you're saying, the rest of the roster is in need of serious repair, and they might just roll out there like, "Oh, we kept Joe Burrow happy. We kept his guys here, his receivers, and we're going to go play the feud this way." And I mean, I kind of wish them luck. I've thought the whole time that their financial situation really was something that bared watching. Like, will they be able to commit the money to doing business in the 21st century in the NFL? Because they are maybe the oldest school ownership that there is in the league.
Yeah.
And that comes with financial realities. And so, man, now moving on from Higgins, I mean, we'll see. Maybe they can make it work. I don't know, but I would not want the Bills to be in that spot.
No.
Like if Gabe Davis had been great and Diggs was not wanting to get out of here, I would not have wanted to pay them both.
Nope.
I don't think you can do that. I think you got to choose, right?
In today's NFL,
I'm going to pay a corner, not two corners. I'm going to pay a
Yes.
receiver, not two receivers. That's the gig.
you have to be able to draft, and their drafts have not been good, which is why they've got a void right now. They've got this void because they have not been able to backlog that roster. That's why they just didn't have. They lost that safety tandem, Geno Stone and
Jesse Bates.
That defense fell apart. And then they just got rid of the second best defensive coordinator in the game in Amarumo behind Spagnuolo.
He certainly his reputation was soaring prior to this year.
And don't get me wrong, Al Golden is their new defensive coordinator, came from Notre Dame. Very good defensive coordinator. He'll be great. But, yeah, I don't know. That to me is not a team that is ascending. It is a team that is, I think, falling backward dramatically. And if they commit, and if I'm the NFL and if they tag T. Higgins again, I'm not bailing them out of that. Have the $26 million in your book. Take more than half of your current salary cap space and dedicate it to your number 2 wide receiver. We're not helping you get out of that. I wouldn't. Why would you trade assets? He'll be available next year. You're not tagging him for a third time.
Right.
If I want him, I'll wait.
803-0550 is the number. We'll get the Bills pecking order on extensions here. Benford, Bernard, Shakir, James Cook are the big four. And, of course, James Cook has been making some noise. We'll get Nate to weigh in on that before we segue to a quick trip around the AFC East during the 4 o'clock hour. At 4 o'clock, Dan Leberfeld, long time on the Jets beat, gives the lowdown on a new Rodgers-free Jets world. And then at 4:30, Marcel Louis-Jacques on the Dolphins. That's all straight ahead here. Nate Geary's in for Mike today. I'm the Bulldog, and this is WGR.
More of Schopp in the
Cruising along here on a Tuesday. Thanks for hanging with us. Nate Geary sitting in for Mike Schopp. I am the Bulldog. Zach Jones along for the ride as well. Are you still watching what's the golf, the indoor, the Tiger Rory? What's that called?
TGL.
TGL. Are you still doing that?
No, I got a new Xbox, so I've been playing NCAA football on the time that I am not watching shows that I just stop watching so I can play Xbox.
Got a new Xbox.
Yeah. I had an Xbox One, which I bought in 2014. Not really a big gamer, but I really wanted to play college football. I've been wanting. And there's a new golf game coming out. So if I can't go outside and do it myself, I'll just play it on my TV.
All right. Good.
So I haven't watched. I was in it for like the first 3 weeks. Last couple weeks, it's not been. Part of it is there's just actual golf on I can watch.
Yeah, I mean there's that.
It's great. I think they need to move it back if they're going to do it next year, presumably like December, January, and into February, because February is. You got Riviera,
right?
You've got the waste management.
I'm ready to go. Yeah,
I'm back.
Yeah,
I don't need this. I don't need this anymore.
Bought a new Xbox, so you're still single then. Good to know.
That joke was better than the Salad Italy joke, I guess.
I don't know.
No,
equally bad.
There is a group in the chat now.
Well,
that is all about.
Oh, I'm aware. Yeah, I'm talking to the people. Nate.
Yes, you are.
Those people specifically. I
am talking to you, those 4 people.
Yes, you 4 people. Thank you for being there. I don't know really what the hell's going on, but whatever. Thank you for listening and watching, I guess, and chatting. We appreciate you chatting.
All of it, all the engagement.
I've dipped in. I mean, it's just it's a big commitment. No, I mentioned the golf, the fake golf. Scotty, the last 2 weeks. I don't know how closely you were watching the Waste Management on Sunday or the Genesis on Sunday. I know all the names of the tournaments now. I'm a changing person here. I don't even know who I used to be anymore. But Scotty, the last 2 Sundays, front nine's like, look out, here comes Scotty Scheffler, and then the back nine, and it's like, what? Mm-hmm. What's the puncture wound? What's happening here?
A little rusty.
I don't know, man.
He shot a 76 on Saturday.
Yeah,
that took him out.
But still, he got within 2, I think, of the lead on Sunday. Like, oh, he's going to win this thing, and then it's like he flubbing chips out of the rough, and like what the?
So
he still had a look at it on 18. I recognize.
Yeah.
But man,
Oberg bogeyed 11, and I cashed out and put my cash out, and then another $25 on Mav McNeely. So that's how my Sunday went.
Maverick McNeely that's AI. It's not a real person.
He barely looks real.
No one is really named Maverick McNeely.
And
I will die on that hill. That is not a real dude.
He grew up at his childhood home is on Pebble Beach, and he flies his own plane to golf tournaments.
See, again, further proof, not a real dude.
Yeah, don't disagree.
Doesn't actually exist. Has never eaten a hamburger. It's not a real human.
Never
eaten anything. He's fake. He's computer generated. Maverick McNeely.
Yeah.
Bitter much.
Real-ish.
I got Scotty at plus 1,200 Sunday morning, so
there were a lot of the chat was cooking.
I was like, ah.
My chat was cooking Sunday about we got Scotty at plus 5,500.
Yeah, no. It didn't work out. All right, we'll head a timeout here, get into the Jets and the Dolphins in the next hour. Dan Leberfeld, first up, Jets Whispers, longtime regular guest of ours here on the show. So we'll take a look at the post-Aaron Rodgers landscape, at least according to one longtime Jets beat reporter. Marcel Louis-Jacques follows him on the Dolphins at the bottom of the hour. So an AFC East hour ahead for you. Nate Geary in for Mike. I'm the Bulldog, and this is WGR.
Back to practice today as the Four Nations will wrap up this week. Our own Paul Hamilton has reported the three Sabres, though, that did take part in the tournament and were eliminated, Rasmus Dahlin, Henri Jokiharju, and Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, have not returned just yet outside of the Four Nations. Beck Malenstein also has not returned, while Matthias Samuelsson has. And we do also have some news for Thursday's final between the United States and Canada. Defenseman Charlie McAvoy out for Thursday. He's dealing with an upper body injury. However, with McAvoy out, Vancouver defenseman Quinn Hughes is joining the United States. Elliot Friedman, though, is reporting another injury will have to occur for Hughes to get into the lineup. The U.S. also has some good news on the injury side, as both Tkachuk brothers are expected to play. In the NFL, step one of the NFL offseason began just a few minutes ago as the franchise window opened up at 4 p.m. It's going to go until March 4th. Bills not expected to use the tag. They have not done so since 2016 with Cordy Glenn. And other teams, though, like the Bengals with wide receiver T. Higgins, are expected to be active. We'll see if that materializes, and if so, how soon. In college hoops, UB men host Western Michigan at 7 p.m. Pregame was going to get underway at 6:30. You can listen to that over on our sister station, The Bet 1520. And a reminder, this week is your last chance to go to Italy with Sal. Don't miss out. Go to WGR550.com and click under Top Stories, or call Travel Brilliant at 716-417-7824. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Paddock Chevrolet celebrating 90 years of business. I'm Zach Jones for WGR Sports Radio 550.
They don't exist anymore?
They don't exist anymore. I just
the
decided
Red Sox?
Today. We should make a call and let them know, but I just decided they're out. I would rather watch the guy, the
Bob Ross.
I'd rather watch Bob Ross than watch my favorite baseball team play in Tampa.
It's Mike Schopp and the Bulldog.
What a matchup. It is bracket season. What a matchup. Your favorite team playing a game in Tampa.
Tuesday, Nate Geary sitting in for Mike Schopp today. I am the Bulldog, and very pleased to welcome back in on the Wester Hotline a very much regular guest here, a staple, some would say. A few times a year, a couple times in the offseason, in season, of course, because the Bills play the Jets home and home every year. It is Dan Luberfeld, Jets Whispers, Jets Confidential. He is on the Wester Hotline. Dan, I don't know if you know Nate. You probably have talked to Nate on some Saturday. Nate's been working the mines on the weekends for years here, but it's good to have you back on the show. How are things in New York?
I'm doing okay, and it's nice to be on with Nate as well. And, I was interested. I know we have to throw out some love to the Wester operation, but the Paddock Chevrolet, 90 years? What kind of cars were they selling? That was fascinating. The Paddock Chevrolet's been around 90 years. So that would be what 1935?
I'm going to assume they were selling Chevrolets back then, Dan. That would be my guess.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't.
Great company.
Yes, indeed. So how I want to start with you is looking back on the last 2 years, the Aaron Rodgers experience with the Jets. Like, are there takeaways? Like, what did we all learn? What did you learn from the experience of Aaron Rodgers? Being the figurehead that he is in New York for the Jets for 2 seasons, albeit only one actually being able to play.
Well, obviously the first year you had the torn Achilles, so that was something that was over before it basically started. But the McAfee show continued that year, and the McAfee show continued this year. And, that's one of the talking points right now that contributed to the departure. I do think weekly shows by players can be a distraction. I know Parcells and Belichick were always against it with their teams over the years. I don't know what Sean McDermott's position is on that, but it's not helpful. But I'll tell you what, even with all the criticism of Aaron Rodgers for the comments he makes and the distractions he might cause, the bottom line is last season, the one that just concluded, the Jets lost 7 games by an average of 3.6 points. if some of those games had gone a different way, what conversation would we be having right now? He'd probably still be with the team. So it shows you the fine line between winning and losing, and I wouldn't necessarily put Aaron Rodgers at the top of the list of reasons why they went 5-12 this past year. You saw that defense against Buffalo at Highmark Stadium. I mean, that was a bad defense. The offensive line was patchwork all year with injuries in and out of the lineup. And I guess the big conclusion I come away with the last 2 years, especially this past year, is he's still very good, but he can't carry a team like he used to. He can't put a team on his back. He needs a supporting cast, and he didn't have a very good one with the Jets.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing about that, though, is that it was thought, I think, when he got there, that was all they needed. Right, we've got all these parts on offense. We've got Robert Saleh, and we've got this defense. All we really need is a quarterback to step in and be kind of middle of the league. And I don't know, it still didn't manage to come together and get a result. How realistic do you think it was at all? We know they're moving on now; it's official. Do you think Aaron Glenn, was there a puncher's chance in hell that they were going to bring Aaron Rodgers back with starting over with a whole new regime?
I don't think so. And I wrote a blog about this the other day, and I wish I had listened closer to Keyshawn Johnson, Keyshawn Johnson played with Aaron Glenn with the Jets from 1996 to 1999. And Keyshawn is now on FS1 on one of their debate shows. And he said right out of the gate, there's no way. And he made some reference. I don't remember the California towns he talked to. He said he would go streaking. Bulldog, you have to explain to Nate Geary what streaking is. Nate, do you know what that was?
No.
That was people. What was that? Bulldog was probably before your time too. Was it in the 70s? People would run around without their clothes on. It was like a
Frank
thing.
the Tank. We're going. Frank the Tank. We're going streaking. Yeah. People Nate's age know it from.
Well, if you say
movies.
Frank the Tank, then I definitely know what it is.
Streaking.
Yeah.
We're going streaking.
Okay, so yes, I do.
Okay. Anyway, continue, Dan.
Okay, so he said. So Keyshawn said, if Aaron Rodgers is back with the Jets this year, I'm just going to throw towns out there. I don't remember what he said. I'll go streaking from Malibu to Sacramento, whatever he said. And Keyshawn said it multiple times that there's no way that Aaron Rodgers is starting his tenure as Jets coach with Aaron Rodgers as his quarterback. And I should have listened knowing they're friends, and Keyshawn was so adamant about it. So, no, I don't think he had a chance. I think the logic is a little misguided. You keep hearing fresh start and turn the page and things like that. That's fine. We all know if you don't have a quarterback in this league, and you guys all know about that stretch between Jim Kelly and Josh Allen in Buffalo, if you don't have a quarterback in this league, you could talk fresh start, turn the page all you want, and you could talk about Aaron Rodgers being a pain in the butt. But with him leaving the building and them going into quarterback never-never-land, that's fine that you want a fresh start or turn the page. But let me give you an anecdote from the GM's experience. The GM, Darren Muji, I hope I'm saying his name right. I haven't met him yet. He was in Denver for a long time. And after Peyton Manning left, between Peyton Manning and Bo Nix for about a decade, they were in quarterback never-never-land. So I understand on some level the thinking as far as fresh start and turn the page. Mm-hmm. But when you go from having an answer at quarterback, even if it's for a year or two, to quarterback no man's land, good luck with that. How many teams could you guys just throw out there that have been in quarterback no man's land forever? The New York Football Giants, the Cleveland Browns. You guys could throw it out there. Chicago, maybe they have finally settled that, but we don't know. So they're going from a guy who I think can still play and had 28 touchdowns last year. And if that number sounds familiar to you guys, that's the same number league MVP Josh Allen had.
Let me ask you this, though, Dan. Like, if you viewed, if the decision was, hey, we're going to run it back with Rodgers for another year, we want to remain competitive this year and not necessarily, break this whole thing down. Isn't there, wouldn't you maybe argue that anyone that's playing in the AFC East, I might even argue anyone that's in the AFC, if you don't have something that is ascending toward the top four or somewhere just outside the top four, Aaron Rodgers or Zach Wilson, they're kind of the same in that they aren't anywhere close to those guys. And the type of roster you have to have in order to overcome the hurdle that Mahomes, Allen, Jackson, and Burrow are, it kind of, I guess, makes sense is you'd rather swing at an opportunity, maybe it's not this year, but next year, at a quarterback that can actually get closer or ascend towards those guys than it is running back, because all you're really doing with Rodgers is potentially hurting your draft stock for a season that actually does have quarterbacks in the draft, which is the 2026 draft.
That's a really good point, Nate, as far as Aaron Rodgers. Now, if you had talked about Aaron Rodgers 5-6 years ago, I'd say he's right up there with Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow. But he's not anymore, as we talked about before, that he was good last year. He wasn't great, and he can't put a team on his back anymore like he could during his MVP seasons in Green Bay. So, Nate, that's a great point, that they might be more competitive and they might go 9-8, but where are they really going with Burrow and Allen and Mahomes in the conference? However, the other part of it is, I totally get your point, is you might have a decade like the GM had in Denver. He wasn't the GM, but he was in the personnel department for 10 years. They were looking for a replacement for Peyton Manning, and Peyton wasn't even that great at the end. So you don't know. In Buffalo, how long was that stretch, would you say? You would know probably the exact number, but
they went 17 straight years without making the playoffs, and were hurting for quarterback the entirety of the time.
Yeah, and the 5 years prior to that.
That's Nate. I totally get what you're saying, Nate. Nate, it's a great point about Rodgers not being on that level with those guys anymore. But you're going from a guy who, let's be honest, the game in Buffalo at Highmark was a debacle. But that first game, that was a good game.
Yep.
That Buffalo won. It went right down to the wire. Rodgers versus Josh Allen. And that, I don't know if they're going to be able to have close games with quarterbacks like that at the very least with whoever they turn to. One guy they could turn to is a guy you know very well, at least as a stopgap, Tyrod Taylor. And Tyrod's a great guy and a solid game manager, but his lifetime record tells you what he is, 29-28-1. He's a 500 quarterback.
And I think you probably, if you're a Jets fan or anyone in the organization, probably want to stay as far away from any player at that position that could potentially get you close to 500, because 500 to me is purgatory. It's where the Bills were. The Bills were never terrible in that 17-year stretch. There were seasons, 4 or 5 wins, but they were always just
7-9.
Yes, always just outside that line of I'm in the area where I can fundamentally change the future of our franchise, because they were a pick away from Cam Newton. And, and Marcel Darius was the pick instead, and we know how that went, right? Or 2 picks away from Cam Newton. But I guess part of this has to be, is this owner really going to give this head coach and general manager the patience required to actually put them on the path that this team has been, trying to find for how many decades now? If they're going to say, they got to tear down the Jets, I think. There is a rebuild coming, right? A full-scale rebuild, right?
Well, this brings us to the point about whether we're grading him on a curve next year, and I refuse to do it. Because whatever you think of Aaron Rodgers, if I view him as an answer next year, like I said, I don't think he's Burrow, Allen, or Mahomes, but I do view him as a viable quarterback. He had more touchdowns this year than Patrick Mahomes. He did a lot of good things. There was utter chaos around him, let's be honest. So if you're gonna make the decision, the new Jets brass, to move on from him, you can't use that as an excuse. You made that decision. It's not taking over a team where they don't have a quarterback. You got to pick one in the first round. You go through the growing pains, and the fans and media understand. If you're throwing Aaron Rodgers out and you want to do a rebuild, that's your problem. But I'm not grading you on a curve, because you made the decision to move on from a guy who could lead you to some success to go into this never land. So as far as the patience with the owner, I think Aaron Glenn will have plenty of patience. If you notice that day, there was a Tuesday, and one of the insiders that maybe Ian Rappaport reported, they're having a second meeting with Aaron Glenn. They don't want to let him out of the building, right? So that means they wanted him as their head coach. He got out of the building. You know why he got out of the building? The deal was done the next day, because Ben Johnson got $13 million a year from Detroit. And we all know these coaching candidates, they want to match the top offer. So I'm assuming the number hasn't actually come out, but I'm assuming Aaron Glenn's around $13 million a year for 5 or 6 years. So yeah, the owner's going to have plenty of patience with him. As far as the general manager, I'm assuming because they had to pay Glenn so much that, and plus the GM was not a candidate other teams had on their hot list. So was not a hot candidate, is 39 years old. I don't think he's making big-time GM money. So he might not make it the whole time. But I think Aaron's going to be here for a long time with that contract.
Dan Leberfeld, long time on the Jets beat, our guest here on the Western Hotline for a couple of more minutes. So what is the plan then at quarterback, Dan? Like what do you think they should do? What do you think they will do? Are they going to be in the Kirk Cousins market? Are they looking to draft someone on day 2 or day 3, or maybe even reach for a guy that, you know, isn't one of the top 2 in the draft? Like what's the best course of action, you think, at QB for the Jets?
You know who would have been the best course of action for them long term is a guy that just re-signed with the Buffalo Bills, Mike White. They had an opportunity there, and I saw him his whole time from the practice squad to those games and that Cincinnati game where his helmet and shoulder pads went in the Hall of Fame, and he was AFC Player of the Week. I saw all that. And you got some pretty smart people running the Bills, and they brought him back for another year. Maybe he's the primary backup next year instead of Trubisky. They had their guy, but they didn't have the patience to say, you know what, at the end of that season, he didn't have a good offensive line, things were falling apart, whatever. No, they pulled the plug on him and moved on. I think he'd still be their quarterback if they had a little patience. But that's neither here nor there because the wise men running the Bills have him locked up for another year. But here's the thing about the current quarterback situation. They have a quarterback named Jordan Travis. You guys remember him well from Florida State. Was the ACC Player of the Year 2023. Had a horrific leg injury on one of those horse collar tackles or not
hip drop. Hip drop. Yep.
Yeah. And he's still recovering. Now, if he gets back to his Florida State form, I could see a scenario where Tyrod Taylor starts the year. Tyrod is always willing to accept that hold the fort quarterback role.
Right.
So maybe Tyrod's hold the fort till Jordan Travis is ready, or maybe they also pick a quarterback in this draft and they have Jordan Travis and the rookie compete for the quarterback of the future situation with Tyrod holding down the position until either one of them's ready. I do think they'll bring in a veteran. You know, sometimes there's some sleeper that was a backup somewhere that a team really likes that you don't know about. You know, who was that guy in Philadelphia last year who played fairly well out of Stanford, tall quarterback, Tanner McKee, right?
Okay.
I'm not saying Tanner McKee's going to be the Jets quarterback.
Right.
I'm not saying Tanner McKee.
Well, I know you're not that far off with Travis either. I mean, you're really
scraping the barrel here.
Yeah,
Dan.
I think that's where we're at. Yeah, I mean, so you don't think like a big name.
There's not a Darnold reunion or then like nothing like that.
No, Darnold needs to stay right where he is. I covered him for 3 years, and Sam Darnold is in the perfect spot because Sam Darnold has all the tools, but that play caller in Minnesota is flat out brilliant. And he would dial up unbelievable first reads and just great plays.
Yep.
If Sam Darnold goes somewhere else and is expected to be a savior, you guys can write it down. It's not going to work. He's got to stay in Minnesota. Kirk Cousins, I think he'll have his choices, and he might want to avoid this place. And the other thing with Kirk Cousins is when you're paying off Aaron Rodgers, I mean, there's a big cap hit here.
Yeah.
You're gonna be able to. I know they can spread it out over 2 years, but can you pay Kirk Cousins and deal with the cap hit of Aaron Rodgers? I'm not sure if that's doable.
Probably not. How impressed are you with the new coach, Aaron Glenn?
Well, you know, one thing in the opening press conference, the thing that's going to be different that they desperately need is there's going to be accountability and discipline. That's who he is. He was that way as a player. He was that way as defensive coordinator of Lions. They just haven't had that in a long time. So he's going to hold players accountable. You know, that guy who dived on the pile, Michael Clemens, did you see that play?
Mm-hmm.
That's not going to work. And see what happens is, and McDermott's great at this, it's like if you do something stupid like that, you can have a little chat with the head coach on the sideline, and you're going to have your butt on the bench for a few series. That stuff was not going on the last 3 or 4 years. Like, there wasn't that kind of accountability. Aaron will up the ante in the accountability and discipline department. I have to admit that after I watched that Washington-Detroit playoff game, and Detroit's defense was so bad in that game, we know they had injuries, but even Tom Brady, who doesn't criticize anybody, was saying, why are they playing man-to-man? They should be playing zone with all those injuries. I was wondering if that would hurt his candidacy at all. That game was so bad for Detroit, but the Jets already had decided that he was going to be their guy. So I don't think he's necessarily the greatest X's and O's coach, but he will bring a lot of accountability and discipline. And if his coordinators can call the three sides of the ball and do a good job, I think he can be a good coach for them.
And how about the key guys on the roster here? Garrett Wilson, Sauce Gardner. Like, is everyone stable? Is everyone comfortable? And do you get the sense that the organization is looking to build around these guys, or is it new kings and they want their own people?
Well, buckle up for this Garrett Wilson situation, because I don't know what the Bills' organizational policy is with first-round picks, but for many, many years, I know when Joe Douglas was a GM and he's taking financial orders from people above him, they would not do first-round contracts after the third year. They wanted to wait till the fourth year. So Garrett Wilson just wrapped up his third year. You're seeing all these receivers getting paid. I'm not sure what they're going to do. Are they going to continue that organizational policy of waiting till the fourth year? If they do, you're going to have some bad blood this offseason, and I'm sure you're going to hear trade rumors about Garrett Wilson. Sauce Gardner, the same thing, just finished his third year. He was a little up and down. So I don't know. What is the Bills? You know what the Bills' organizational policy is about first-round picks after 3 years? Obviously you have the fourth year of the rookie deal, you have the fifth-year option, and you have the sixth-year franchise tag. So you can use all that. What have the Bills done as far as, is it after the third year or after the fourth year of first-round picks?
They've done some of each. I'm almost
they
sure.
signed Josh after the third year.
Right, that was easy.
There's not a ton of other examples of this regime. There haven't really been the first-round picks to re-sign.
They are in a situation here, not with first-round picks, although Rousseau is on this list, but he's going into year 5. He's on his fifth-year option, so they didn't do that with him. They did pick up the fifth-year option, but didn't do a new contract with him. But there are 4 key guys here that are in this situation this year. Bernard, their middle linebacker, Benford, their best corner, Shakir, their best receiver, and James Cook, who's been making some noise about wanting a big contract. They are all going into year 4 next year. So we'll see. I don't know that I wouldn't say, like you're saying definitively, the Jets have had a policy. I don't believe the Bills have a policy, but I don't have a long list of examples other than Josh.
Trey White? What about Trey White?
I think that was after the third year.
I think that was after the third year.
Yep.
Yeah. So.
All right, so I guess it's a case-by-case basis.
Right.
Yeah, there doesn't seem to be like a universal philosophy.
Well, here's the thing about paying the receiver. You look at the Bills. I know the Bills didn't reach the ultimate prize this year, but they moved on from Diggs. I'm just not sure. I'm not comfortable. I don't know about you guys at that 35 to 40 million area we're entering now with the receivers. Obviously, you need receivers, but are they going to lead you to a championship?
Well,
you need them, but are they going to lead you to a championship?
The timing is interesting for, like you're saying here, policy or not. I'd be worried about committing big money to a receiver when I don't have an answer at quarterback. I thought the same thing about Minnesota last offseason. Not that I thought that they would be eager to part with Justin Jefferson, but biting off that contract while not having stability at quarterback. I mean, they drafted a guy, and the plan was to ease him in, but he got hurt, and then Darnold and lightning struck, and there you are. So that really worked out for them. If I'm the Jets, I'd be worried, because how long is it going to be before you answer the quarterback question? And I don't know what good having a $35 million receiver really does you if you've got a revolving door at quarterback.
Right. If you don't have an answer at quarterback, it doesn't really matter who you have at receiver. Look at the Chicago Bears last year. Now, Caleb Williams could turn out to be really good, but he was struggling as a rookie, seeing the field, going through his progressions, all that. They went out and got Rome Odunze. They got, obviously, they had DJ Moore.
Keenan Allen.
What difference did it make?
Right, they spun wheels.
Yeah.
So now Ben Johnson gets to try a kick at fixing all of that. Dan, we got to go. Thank you very much for all of this. I'm sure we'll hit you up again at some point in the spring or summer as we get closer to, spring and summer. Appreciate the off-season time, Dan, as always.
It's always great to be on the 50,000-watt WGR.
There you go. Dan Leberfeld, our guest, Jets Whispers, Jets Confidential, longtime beat guy with the New York Jets. We will shift away from the Jets to our other favorite AFC East team, the Miami Dolphins. Marcel Louis-Jacques been on that beat for a while since he left Buffalo after being on the Bills beat for a few years with ESPN.com. That's coming your way right after this. Nate Geary in for Mike Schopp. I am the Bulldog, and this is WGR.
The Buffalo Sabres return to practice today as the Four Nations face-off will begin to wrap up this week. Our own Paul Hamilton has reported the three Sabres who took part in the tournament and were eliminated, Rasmus Dahlin, Henri Jokiharju, and Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, have not returned just yet. And then outside of the Four Nations, Beck Malmstein has not returned yet, while Matthias Samuelsson was at practice today. Speaking of, though, the Four Nations face-off, we do have some news for Thursday's final between the United States and Canada. A lot of injury news for the United States. Defenseman Charlie McAvoy out as he's dealing with an upper body injury, but with him out, Vancouver's defenseman Quinn Hughes is joining the United States. However, it's been reported by multiple sources that he will not be in the lineup unless another injury occurs. And the United States, though, did also get some good injury news as both Kachuk brothers are expected to play. Over in the NFL, we are past the 4 o'clock window, and that means the franchise tag window, is opened and going until March 4th. Multiple reports have the Bengals preparing to tag wide receiver T. Higgins. We'll see if and or when that materializes. And then the Panthers are signing quarterback Andy Dalton to a 2-year, $8 million deal, $6 million of that guaranteed, and that keeps Dalton in Carolina, who he's been with since 2023. And then in college hoops, UB men host Western Michigan at 7 p.m. Pregame getting underway at 6:30, and you can listen to that over on our sister station, The Bet 1520. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Paddock Chevrolet celebrating 90 years of business. I'm Zach Jones for WGR Sports Radio 550.
Along here on a Tuesday. Thank you for hanging with us. A quick little tour around the AFC East continues now as we welcome back in on the Wester Hotline former Bills beat reporter for ESPN.com, currently serving in that role with the Miami Dolphins, or for the Miami Dolphins for ESPN.com. He is Marcel Louis-Jacques. Marcel, it's great to have you on the show again. Nate's in for Mike today, and I know you guys go way back as well, so welcome in.
Absolutely. Always a pleasure to be back. Thanks for having me.
So you're not like in your 70s yet. You moved to Florida on us. I'm still kind of bummed out. We're all trying to get over it still, Marcel.
You know, I actually took a picture of the weather report today, not to rub it in, but I just saw, across the country, minus 18 in Billings, minus 14 in Kansas City, negative 4 in Chicago. And then there's Miami, and it's 83. And it was like, oh, yeah, that's why I did this. That makes sense.
Yeah. We're not envious at all here. It feels like one of the longest winters we've ever experienced, but I guess that just is how it happens when you start getting older. So how are things with the Dolphins? What's the top of the news cycle in Dolphins world here, Marcel? Is Tyreek Hill going to be fine? Do they need to move on from him, or did walking back his comments during Super Bowl week sort of strike the right chord and everyone's on the same page now?
The Dolphins didn't really have much of a plan to trade Tyreek Hill. Obviously, he and his agent walked that comment back pretty strongly over the past, we'll call it month and a half. I think there is a world in which the Dolphins can sit down, the Chris Greer, Mike McDaniel, assistant coaches, and have a real discussion about, whether what their ceiling is as currently constructed, with this much money allocated to the wide receiver position, where can they go, considering it has not resulted in a playoff win over the past 3 years, and last year it didn't even result in a playoff appearance. So I think there's some serious questions, but they're going to look at that 2023 season where they felt like, they were real contenders that just simply ran out of bodies at the end of the season, and I think that's the most likely occurrence is they try to recapture that form. But they do need to rebuild the offensive line. I think the big thing that we hear from fans every year is, hey, Chris Greer, when are you going to address the O-line? And he's got this response that y'all are more worried about it than we are. And it bites him every single year. This year I asked him about him after the season, and he's like, okay, yep, you're right. I'm concerned about the offensive line. We are going to have to allocate real resources to it this offseason. So it's going to be a rebuild. If Teron Armstead comes back, which is it sounds like that's his plan, they should return 3 starters with him, Aaron Brewer and Austin Jackson, who's coming off a pretty significant knee injury. I think it was a torn meniscus or MCL, one of the two. But it was significant enough that no questions asked, he was out for the season. They're going to have to replace 2 guards, and if Armstead retires, then you're throwing Patrick Paul in there at left tackle. But I think we're seeing real resources being allocated toward that position here in the coming months.
You alluded to the money spent on receivers with the big contract with Tyreek Hill and now a big contract with Jalen Waddle as well. I never thought they'd sign Waddle. In fact, I thought if they signed Waddle, that would mean they were going to trade Tyreek Hill. And Nate and I just talked about this in the first hour of our show today here in Buffalo, Marcel, like what the Bengals are going through with Higgins, and they're going to franchise him and try to work out a long-term deal, and they still, of course, have to sign the best receiver in football, or certainly one of the very best receivers in football, in Jamar Chase. And that just seems like a lot of resources to tie up with 2 franchise-caliber receivers. Miami's a year into it. Do you think there's buyer's remorse there? Like you said, they got to sort of assess where they're at. They've got a lot of assets deployed at one position there.
No, I think it's hard to say they would regret signing Waddle. Although he's kind of that rare occasion over the past few years where they've re-signed one of their own. We've been seeing homegrown talent walk. Andrew Van Ginkel, Pro Bowler. Christian Wilkins, $100-some-odd million contract. Robert Hunt, Pro Bowler. All of whom, did not get a comparable contract offer from the Dolphins, last offseason. So bringing Waddle back, I think they spent significant assets to get him. You saw when he and Tyreek are on, that 2022 season where Waddle had, I think it was 1,300 yards, Tyreek had 1,700. I think they're holding on to that. It's almost a nostalgia factor at this point. That was not the case last season. I don't, for whatever reason, if you want to say it was Tua's health, then sure. But Waddle's production has been dropping ever since that season over the past few years, and Miami is pretty intent right now on spreading the wealth around and employing more of a balanced offense, incorporating the short, intermediate part of the field, middle areas of the field. So now in hindsight, it looks like, I don't know if our roster construction fits our current philosophy if you're the Dolphins, but I don't think that there's a lot of regret in rewarding a homegrown guy who's done things the right way. He stayed out of trouble. He works hard. I don't think that's a sense of regret per se. But as Dan Orlovsky said, in a warning to the Cincinnati Bengals, when you sign and pay big money to 2 receivers and to the quarterback, you better be drafting extremely well, right? Like the Philadelphia Eagles, for instance. Big money to Devontae Smith, big money to A.J. Brown, big money to Jalen Hurts, and they nailed just about every draft pick you can hope for. So this is really a big offseason for Chris Greer, who, he had sort of a full allotment of draft picks last year, but in 2022, 2023, he had 8 combined draft picks to work with. So there's not a lot of, and let's be honest here, he hit on one of them. He hit on Devon Achane. That's a hit. The other 7, only Channing Tindall's on the team. Cam Smith is on his way out at this rate. So this is a big year for him in the draft, like in Indy and the pro day circuit. He has to hit on these draft picks here. He's got to find some guys who can contribute now and who can contribute on rookie deals for the next few years in order for this model to remain sustainable.
It's not just, Marcel, that the model you're talking about them moving to, what they're going to need for it. I look at just the overall salary cap this year in 2025 for the Dolphins, and it's one of the more top-heavy rosters that I have ever seen in the league. 4 guys that are going to make $20 million this year, another 5 that are going to make double digits in the millions, and a back of the roster that I think what you're talking about is, I think this is the one area the Bills have been good at, is maybe they haven't hit those first-round picks, but they have a roster that turned over 6 captains last year and basically had their, kind of starters in waiting behind them. And right now that is definitely not where the Dolphins sit, but a guy like Javon Holland, who's probably going to get a pretty big number in free agency. Like, is that even a conversation that the Dolphins can have right now, knowing that, like, they still got Bradley Chubb on a $28 million cap hit number coming off his second ACL injury? That's not a restructure option. Like, you can't restructure him with an injury history. And so, like, how do you, if you're looking at this team this year, is Javon Holland going to even, like, are they going to even be able to get an offer into him?
They have to. They're not, like you said, they're not in a position to let him walk. They don't have that on the roster currently. They can go and get a guy like, I don't know, Malachi Starks out of Georgia there with pick 13. That's a popular pick in the mocks, but you still have a hole at safety. That's the only safety you've got. There's Patrick Morris, the 7th-round pick from last year. They like him. I don't know that they like him as a starter in year 2. But on the other side, though, Javon Holland did not have a good season last season. He did not have a good year last year. Was not voted a team captain. No interceptions. This would be, Anthony Reaver's going to stay put, so he's got back-to-back coordinators now, but did not mesh with Boyer at first, did not really mesh with Vic Fangio's system. Pretty publicly kicked a pile of rocks in his hands after Vic Fangio parted ways from Miami. Very thinly veiled, if thin at all, just not veiled. There are some, it's not like it's a much of a slam dunk as we thought it was going to be after that 2021 rookie season when he was on pace to be, a top 5 safety in the league. And I'm not saying he's not one of the better safeties in the NFL, but I do think this past year, and maybe a little bit in 2023, he played his way out of market-setting money. I know that they have offered him, last year, and they weren't able to agree. They agreed to table it. I don't think he's a franchise tag candidate, so I wouldn't say that that's on the table. But I think both sides have a little bit of leverage here where, if cool heads prevail and they look at this objectively, I'm sure that they can find a number. But, I don't think Holland's play recently warrants high-end money, market-setting money. And I don't think that the Dolphins roster construction warrants lowballing the one legitimate safety that they have. So, again, both sides are coming to the table,
right?
With their hands tied behind their back, or at least one hand tied behind their back. Let's hope, for their sake, that they can use the other one to shake and find an agreement.
Marcel Louis-Jacques, ESPN.com, on the Dolphins here on WGR for just a couple of more minutes with us. How is Mike McDaniel being viewed now? It felt like from our distance here, Marcel, like a rough ride for him this past year. Of course, the quarterback gets hurt, and that is going to provide a unique set of challenges, of course. But his inability to get much of anything done on offense without him in a league where the Browns last year played 6 quarterbacks and made the playoffs. Kevin O'Connell gets his rookie hurt in training camp, and here comes Sam Darnold, and look, Sam Darnold suddenly looks like a franchise quarterback again. Some coaches have gotten credit for working very effectively with backups, and McDaniel just could not find his way without Tua. How much, if at all, does that stick to him moving forward?
Yeah, I think it definitely bothers him, and I think there was there's a little bit of, what's the word I'm looking for here? Almost like not ego, but Skylar Thompson was his guy. Drafted him in the 7th round. They threw him into the fire as a rookie. He almost went up to Buffalo, beat the Bills in a playoff game. Maybe a missed. A drop pass, a couple drop passes away from making things really scary for Buffalo, I think. But he just simply did not get the reps as in year 2. Matter of fact, he didn't play at all in year 2. And while I understand their logic in saying, he took more walkthrough reps than anybody, unfortunately, for a guy whose number one issue was his processing speed, doing things at a walkthrough pace repeatedly doesn't really help you that much. And it looked like it in Seattle. He looked like he was running things at walkthrough pace still. He was processing things at a walkthrough pace, and they were not prepared beyond that. And that it simply tanked them. Now, Chris Greer did admit that they were in the backup quarterback market, in the offseason. They had a couple guys, at the last second decide to go elsewhere. He wouldn't put names to the claim, but kudos to them for trying, but it didn't work. They didn't have a guy in place. So I think that's another one right after offensive line is making sure you have a legitimate backup in place. Tyler Huntley dazzled against the Cleveland Browns and then fell flat against the New York Jets in a must-win game the next week. And I think he had more instances of being disappointing than he did popping. So I don't think that he did enough to warrant getting the job next year, kind of handed to him. It's not his job to lose at the very least. He could still probably go win it. But that is something maybe whether it's through the draft or through free agency, they need somebody because at this point I had a former GM tell me guys don't get healthier the longer they play. The older they get, it's not like they get stronger unless you're Tom Brady, which respectfully Tua is not. And at this point in his career, Tua has missed games to the extent that you need a high-level backup in the event, the unfortunately likely event, that he misses a couple games. So that is, again, right under offensive line, adding a legit backup quarterback is priority number 2. Hubris was the word I was looking for.
Yeah, I thought so. I didn't want to jump on you. We don't know each other that well, but I thought hubris was where you were going.
I was like talking myself around a dictionary. I did 2 things at once right there, man. I don't think people have realized how impressive that was. 2 different places, that entire segment.
You were just talking, but really trying to search the annals of your brain to figure out what that word was.
Everything made sense, Marcel, just so you know.
Welcome to radio, Marcel.
That is autopilot for you, man.
Hey, I got one more before we let you go. A quick one. I mentioned earlier Bradley Chubb. Him and Jalen Phillips both coming off, Chubb's injury happened 2 years ago. But where are the Dolphins with both of those players going into this year?
Well, they picked up Jalen Phillips' 5th-year option, so he's going to be playing on that. Bradley Chubb was at a place where he was not healed enough to play and force somebody out at the end of the season, because, you can't just bring somebody back. Somebody else has to go. And so from their perspective, he wasn't back enough. He wasn't ready enough to warrant taking somebody else's spot. And I think Bradley Chubb understood that. So, but they do expect him to be a full go this offseason. This is not a situation where Chubb is still having to rehab the injury. I think he's good to go. They're ready for him to be back. Jalen Phillips is already freaking running, dude. So, he wants to be back by training camp. That much I could tell you. Whether he will be, different story. Team's obviously going to have to protect him from himself to an extent as well. But they expect both these guys to be available. And then Chop Robinson, who, look, man, I love a good victory lap just as much as the next guy. So I'm going to take one here. Dolphins fans were so disappointed by this kid based on his first 4 weeks. And I told people, just be patient. The light is starting to come on. He's not finishing, but he's getting there. And that's something that we saw a lot from Jalen Phillips, too. That's the next best thing. Sacks aren't the full story. And then the sacks started to come. The pressures started to come. The tackles for loss remained. The QB hits remain. The guy looks like a future star, especially with that explosive first step. So if he continues to build, he continues to take a step forward, this could be, and a lot of ifs here, but Chubb and Phillips returning to full health, especially in Chubb's case this is almost a year and a half, 2 years off. They could have a formidable 3-man pass rush.
Yeah, I agree with you on Chop Robinson. He as the year went on, he became more and more of a force, and I think is someone certainly that we're going to be keeping our eyes on here a couple times a year. Marcel, thanks a lot for this. It's great to catch up, appreciate and all the best, and hopefully we get a chance to visit again sometime over the summer.
Absolutely, man. Y'all know where to find me. Appreciate you having me on.
There's Marcel Louis-Jacques, ESPN.com Dolphins beat guy. Spent a couple of years here in Buffalo covering the Bills for the same outfit. Nice to catch up with him. We are super duper late. We'll take a time out here. Nate Geary's in for Mike. I am the Bulldog, and you're listening to WGR. Sorry, I don't know. We were just talking here, the three of us, like, oh yeah, the show.
Oh, it's right. We do. Yeah, that's,
we gotta do what we were just doing, except with the microphones on, and the headphones, and the Twitch, and all the stuff. The Twitch. 803-0550 is the number. We're wide open the rest of the way here. So here's what I want to do with Nate coming up after the break, because we gobbled up a bunch of time in the last hour talking Jets and Dolphins with Dan Leberfeld and Marcel Louis-Jacques, respectively. Pecking order on extensions for the four, right? I mean, there's other business the Bills have to do and tend to, and restructures and releases and whatever. But I think Bernard, Benford, Shakir, Cook, all ready for contract extensions. Urgency is where, at what level on all four guys. We know James Cook is certainly trying to affect the urgency from his end. Nobody else seems to be making any noise, but we'll get into that and prioritize them as we go through into the next hour. And if you want to join in that conversation, you got a preference on those four dudes I just mentioned. Again, Shakir, Benford, Cook, and Bernard are the four guys, all 3 years in, all eligible for extensions, all look to be, to me, guys that you'd want to keep around on your team. It's just a question of price points and, figuring that out. We'll get into that as we move into the 5 o'clock hour here. 803-0550, again, is the number. Nate Geary in for Mike. I am the Bulldog, and this is WGR.
The Sabres got back to practice today as the Four Nations face-off will wrap up later this week on Thursday. Our own Paul Hamilton has reported from practice 3 Sabres who took part in the tournament and were eliminated. Rasmus Dahlin, Henri Jokiharju, and Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen have not returned yet. Neither has Beck Malenstein, while Mattias Samuelsson has returned. The Sabres next play on Saturday against the Rangers. For Thursday's final in the Four Nations between the United States and Canada, some injury news for the States. Defenseman Charlie McAvoy is out as he's dealing with an upper body injury, and with that injury, Vancouver defenseman Quinn Hughes is joining the United States. However, Elliot Friedman is reporting another injury will have to occur for Hughes to get put into the lineup. And then some good news for the United States, both Tkachuk brothers are expected to play. In the NFL, the franchise tag window has opened. It will be going until March 4th. Multiple reports have the Bengals preparing to tag wide receiver T. Higgins. We will see if and or when that materializes, while the Bills not expected to use the tag. They've actually not done so since 2016 with Cordy Glenn. And the Panthers, they are signing quarterback Andy Dalton to a 2-year, $8 million deal. $6 million of that is guaranteed. And this keeps Dalton in Carolina, a team he's been with since 2023. And college hoops tonight. UB men host Western Michigan at 7 p.m. Pregame getting underway at 6:30. You can listen to that over on our sister station, The Bet 1520. And a reminder, this week is your last chance to go to Italy with Sal. Don't miss out. Go to WGR550.com and click under Top Stories or call Travel Brilliant at 716-417-7824. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Paddock Chevrolet celebrating 90 years of business. I'm Zach Jones for WGR Sports Radio 550.
We were having a very serious conversation about mayonnaise here.
And the Bulldog.
And don't even talk to me about weed.
On WGR Sports Radio 550.
I got to tell you, I thought we were well past Andy Dalton makes the sports update days. What? Did Zach just say Andy Dalton got a contract? What? Andy Dalton? Oh, okay. I mean, he's not. I guess he's not that
Slow
old,
season, buddy.
But wow. I mean, I guess you could do worse as a backup quarterback. Like, I don't know. I don't know how much less faith I'd have in Andy Dalton than Mitch Trubisky.
I would have
honestly
notably more faith.
Yeah, okay.
I would have notably more faith.
There you go then. Yeah. I should not be. I rescind any skepticism about Andy Dalton warranting a contract extension, because I think that just says it all. Would you feel better about him being the backup quarterback?
Surely.
Probably. Okay. Yeah. So I don't feel good about.
Having said that, if somebody needs to be sold on Mike White, Dan Leberfeld will do that for you. He will sell Mike White.
He wants to get you into that car today.
Yes, he does.
By the close of business.
Right.
He doesn't even need to go talk to the other guy.
No.
He's just going to.
That's right.
He's got the financing
I am not price shopping this, sir.
He is. Yeah. He's going to throw in the Z-Bart. I mean, he is getting you everything.
He get you the undercoating for free.
He's got everything you need.
Oh, you need custom, what are those?
Oil changes?
Yep. For life.
Free oil changes? Yeah.
For life.
No, we'll come get you.
Yep.
We'll drive you back and forth. Shuttle, everything.
Free tire rotation.
You're all set. It's a slightly used, probably damaged Mike White.
Slightly is certainly carrying a lot of weight.
All right, Nate Geary's in for Mike. I am the Bulldog. Thanks for hanging with us today here. We did talk to Dan Leberfeld on the Jets. That's where this Mike White sidebar is coming from. And Marcel Louis-Jacques last hour on the Dolphins, too. So, the priority list here. The Bills, again, not that they... I mean, I could ask you a broader question. Like, what is your off-season... Like, what's at the top of the list for you as we embark on this months-long process of guessing, prognosticating, ultimately talking about the moves the Bills do and do not make? Like, you must have a list. I don't know if you've got it prioritized, if you're ready to prioritize it live on the radio, but like, what needs to get done for the Bills in 2025 in the offseason here?
And just in terms of retaining and roster players, not necessarily the other stuff. Right?
Sure.
Okay,
yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. We can focus on the four guys that I mentioned as we went to the break that are due contract
really
extensions.
It's 5.
Okay.
I would say Rousseau's in there.
Oh, sure. Yeah, that's right. Yes.
Yes. I would say it's 5.
Absolutely. He's going into a walk year.
Yep.
5th-year option. Yeah.
I've thought about this recently just about where, especially just with the James Cook conversation, right? I think that's probably the first extension you should look at. And I know it doesn't necessarily mean I think he's the priority. I just think in terms of how you can set a contract like that will allow you to set up the other contracts. I think he would be the first domino, not the most important one, but the domino that gives them the clearer picture of how they're going to structure other contracts. A 5-year deal that's probably more like a 2 with an out with 3 void years makes a ton of sense for me. For me, I think James Cook is an incredibly important piece to the puzzle. And I know he's not a guy that's playing 70% of the snaps, and I don't see that changing next year, or even if they re-sign him, I don't really see that changing.
That is a big thing in the way of committing top of the market dollars to any running back, to me.
I think he more than likely that 5-year deal with void years looks like it's $15 million a year on average.
Yeah, but it's
bunch of money, like a big old fat signing bonus right off the bat, and then just throw all that money into those void years and figure it out. Like, that's where the Bills are right now. The Bills are at the point where they have tons of space the next 2 years, 26 and 27, tons. The contracts that they sign right now, that's why I think free agency is more in play than people think. Maybe not the big trade that everyone's with the Crosby or maybe that trade's not there, but they could get a big swing. They could go for an $18, $20 million player a year and just have it be in one of those 2 years. So I think James Cook's the first guy. To me, the most important player to lock up is Christian Benford.
Yeah.
He's the first.
I agree 100%.
Real lockdown corner that you didn't have, that has been playing on the most valuable contract you probably could have on a team, playing that type of role and having that type of impact. Obviously, you want to see him come back 100% from the head injuries. 2 in 2 weeks is not great. But I think to me, he is number 2. To me, number 3 ends up being Shakir. And I think Shakir is kind of the archetype, the mold of guys that they're going to want to continue building around on offense. I don't think his number is going to be outrageous. I think you can get him on a pretty team-friendly deal and be a guy that you build around offensively. And that would obviously lead us to Bernard being kind of the last guy on this list, or Rousseau, however you want to look at it. And it's not to me to tell you that I don't think Bernard's the 4th most important person you have to sign. I just think you could probably wait another year on Bernard, wait till he gets to free agency, tag him. Middle linebacker's not the most insanely high market. Yeah. You could transition tag him as well. So there's some things you could do with Bernard. It might also make sense to sign him after a down year, which I guess in theory he had, considering how good his second season was. Some injuries, didn't have the same big play impact, but he's still a guy I think you're building around moving forward. You might be able to get him at a number that you really like this year, like the Ed Oliver contract, where in a year he's like the 25th highest paid player at his position, something like that. I think he's hugely important to what they want to do moving forward. And I think if that's how you're going to prioritize those guys, that's probably how I would do it, just based on what they're going to make, how you fit it into the puzzle. I think the other conversation of this too is not just, hey, these guys that are re-signing. I think it's where are you with Vaughn? Where are you with Matt Milano? Where are you with some of these key pieces that I think could be in play, but I think you could easily get to a case where you let Vaughn and Milano both walk this offseason. Like, cut them and just move on and figure it out. I think you probably don't want to really do that with Milano, but I also think you're probably at a point where you're saying he's past 30. He's coming off 2 long-term injuries. He finally flashed towards the end, like, okay, the athleticism is back. And I think that maybe gives them another year with that. But they didn't pay 2 linebackers before.
Right.
And I don't think they're going to do it now.
Right.
So I think if you want to wait on Bernard because you want to have Milano under contract for another year, I think you could do it.
Yeah. I wonder if you can work. The player's got to be amenable to it, obviously.
Yes.
And, that might make, in certain circumstances, that can be a lot to ask. Milano certainly has had to work to get back. back.
Yes.
So it's not like he's just been sitting home, eating ice cream while he's been hurt. The rehab, I think anyone would tell you, is harder than playing and practicing and doing all that. So he's been sweating it out. But I wonder if you can't get a break on his contract at this point with his age and see if he wants to be still around and be a part of it, because I do think there's value in bringing him back. I'm just not sure about the number anymore on him. So I'd be looking to adjust the contract, if not flat out pay cut Milano.
Yep.
I like Bernard a lot. To me, it's not, if it comes together at a number that you like, great. If not, kick it down the road. I can wait on that. I don't know that I want to lead off with Cook. I wonder how they're reacting over there to what he's done publicly. Mm-hmm. I just think the whole thing just sort of came out of nowhere to me.
I don't disagree.
And it seems like the sort of thing you would start doing when you already know you're in some sort of a battle for hearts and minds, if you will, right?
Yeah.
With the fans. You're trying to get people on your side.
That really wasn't the move that did it.
I don't think you needed to fire the first shot, unless the first shot has already been fired behind closed doors, and we don't know. This early in the offseason, maybe the agent already talked to Brandon Beane and was like, yeah, we're not doing an extension this year for your guy. It's just not in the cards.
Yeah.
Which, you talk about negotiating on a downish year. Well, tying for the league lead in rushing touchdowns is maybe not the optimal time to negotiate the new contract for your running back.
And I think if you're the agent, you think it's the perfect time
to start
negotiating.
Of course it is, right? Yeah. So what matters here? Well, the player being one of the engines, the key engine to your offense. Obviously, Allen is the engine, but Cook is certainly a very nice complementary part. I think, given the state of their receiving core and their tight ends, he's the most impactful, important supporting part to their offense. But he still doesn't play enough for me to say I'm going to devote 13, 14, 15 million. And so I don't know if I want to start there. I might be inclined to sort of go to the mattresses on Cook. I've got you for a fourth year. I've got a franchise tag if I want it. I don't have to settle this with you now. If you're stuck on this annual average value, even if it's a farce, I don't know what really that accomplishes other than massaging one's ego. You get to see the big boxcar number, annual AAV, this or that, and that helps you sleep better at night, even though you're not going to see the final 3 years of it. I don't know, but whatever. Plenty of players have done it. I don't think I would start there on Cook. I would want to at least see how noisy he gets if I don't act on it. Right? I guess I'm going to dare him a little. The risk is that, you alienate him? Does that alienate other people on the team? Everybody wants guys to be taken care of. I don't think the Bills players themselves are going to tell you running backs don't matter, right? They watched James Cook score 16 touchdowns on the ground this year. They're thinking that we, pay our guy. He's got to be back. So it could get a little tricky. This is kind of the first one of these they've really had. I know they went to the limit with Poyer and let him go find out what was out there, and he didn't like what was out there, so he ended up coming back. Milano in his year heading into free agency, I know I wasn't optimistic, but they got it done.
Yep.
They really haven't had anything that puts them to the test, right? And
I think it's too because, I'm thinking last year, you could telegraph they were not going to be in it with Gabe Davis. At the start of the season, there was no hey, as your agent, that was just yep, we're going to get to the end of the season and we're going to assess then. I think the team knew we weren't really interested in this moving forward. We want to change. Just all the same with Edmonds. Nobody really thought, especially it appeared they had
made their choice.
Made their choice by paying Milano.
Right.
I think this is the first one where you're I think both sides would really like to continue on, and I just wonder if they can. I think where I come back in is the importance of how the offense, if this is how you are constructing your offense moving forward, that having a James Cook-style player is going to be hugely important to their offense because he was their big play guy. If you don't have James Cook this year, I know 50% of the snaps, whatever. If you don't have James Cook, you don't have big plays. Who else was getting you big plays this year?
There was not
there.
Not much at all.
It was not there. So he's probably right now across the league the best big play threat in the running backfield in the league. I don't think he's the best running back in the league. I think he's the best big play threat you have in the league that's at running back. And that's a unique thing. It's like CJ Spiller, but he's a real running back. And I think like this year, I agree with you to an extent. Like, I'm only viewing him as the first one because if you're going to re-sign a running back and you really believe this is how you're going to build your offense as long as Joe Brady's here, this is the image of our offense, then Cook might be the second most important player on offense outside of Josh Allen.
Right, and that I don't want that to be true because I
disagree that I don't want it to be true.
I don't want a running back to matter that much.
Yeah,
but he
right
did. He did, and like so here we are.
And like all of this to say,
all the more reason to not do it now.
Here's the hard part.
If he wants it now, I understand you want it harmonious and all this. It's the worst possible time for them to do it. If he goes out and has another year like last year again this season, and the price just goes up, then
they're out.
I guess I have to take that chance, but I don't want to get into it right now.
Here's the little window you're playing with here, though. It's not ideal because right now you have arguably the deepest running back draft in 10 years.
Right.
This year, not next year. This year. You also want to bring back Ty Johnson.
I think you should want to bring back
Ty Johnson. And you also have Ray Davis. So what are you're going to draft a running back to be a potential future guy? Where does that guy? You're going to keep 4 running backs on the roster? Are you willing to see if Ray Davis is going to hit the practice squad? I don't think that's happening.
No.
I don't know how you take a running back this year, keep your group. I just like that. That is really tough.
Yep,
I mean, it's a numbers game. It's will you, won't you, when you won't, like when will you or when won't you. This is not an enviable position for Brandon Beane. And I'm not here to tell you I think James Cook made it harder or worse, or James Cook made it harder or worse. But I do find it kind of interesting. The one guy that McDermott and I don't want to tell you that I remember a lot of other guys where McDermott spent 2.5, 3 minutes just glowing about. That's not to say that he doesn't do it. It's just not really his style. It's like hey, he was great. We're working on it. Like he's more quicker, I think, to lightly criticize, tell you we want more, than he is to go on a soapbox and tell you the demeanor of a certain player and his growth and his work ethic and the production. Like he was like making it a point. When McDermott does that, he's doing it for a reason, and he does it a lot. He's a very calculated communicator. When he wants to tell you something, because he never tells you anything, when he does, it's like when he speaks, it speaks volumes. Like that's kind of to me, the substance of that was before this situation came out where he wants $15 million, was like 2 days prior. Then that kind of thing came out. That says something to me. I don't know what it says, but it says something. And I think there's just like this very small, minuscule, like needle hole that you have to thread, I think, here so that everyone's happy, which, by the way, means you are happy. The organization is happy. Like, there are probably guys you could go get in the 3rd or 4th round this year at running back that could be a similar style player to James Cook. But, man, I just think when it's perfect, I think you got like Cook, Shakir, Kincaid, and like a good number 1 caliber level receiver. And I think you really got something there on offense. Who
is that receiver? Keon Coleman? We both made a face.
Yeah, I don't know. Unfortunately, now people can see us.
I know.
Yeah, there's no hiding any
Very
longer in this
conscious of the fact
studio.
we just both made a face. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's a tough time. Well, I want to get to Benford because the price tag on him is going to be massive.
Yes.
And I think that is the priority. I mean, the talking about Cook, there's the running back part of the conversation. There's him going public. That's part of the conversation. There's the depth chart part of the conversation. So it ends up sort of taking over, I feel like, whenever we start talking about this subject. Man, Benford is a you can't lose him caliber player to me right now.
Yep.
And also that means you're at kind of top of the market or like close to it. We'll talk about some of those numbers here. I've got his Spot Track page open up here and his estimated market value. I don't know how aware of this folks are. I mean, you've got computers, you can look at it yourself, but we'll get into that as we continue here. Nate Geary's in for Mike. I am the Bulldog. You want to get in on the conversation? We're more than happy to have you here at 803-0550. You're listening to WGR.
Back to practice today for the Buffalo Sabres after having a few weeks off. The Four Nations face-off will wrap up on Thursday, and our own Paul Hamilton has reported that the three Sabres who did take part in the tournament and have been eliminated, Rasmus Dahlin, Henri Jokiharju, and Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, have not returned just yet. They're joined by Beck Malenstein, while defenseman Mattias Samuelsson did return to practice today. Now, to the Four Nations face-off, the United States-Canada preparing for that Thursday final. For the U.S., defenseman Charlie McAvoy is out. He's dealing with an upper body injury. With him being out, Vancouver defenseman Quinn Hughes is expected to be the next man up. But according to Elliot Friedman, another injury would need to happen to see Hughes be put in the lineup. And with that, for now, Hughes is still with the Canucks. He was seen at practice today, albeit in a non-contact jersey. In the NFL, the franchise tag window has opened. No player yet has been tagged. It's open until March 4th, so no rush really for a lot of these NFL teams. Multiple reports, though, have the Bengals preparing to tag wide receiver T. Higgins. We'll see if and or when that ultimately materializes. And then in college hoops, UB men host Western Michigan at 7 p.m. pregame, getting underway at 6:30. You can listen to that over on our sister station, The Bet 1520. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Headlines. Paddock Chevrolet celebrating 90 years of business. I'm Zach Jones for WGR Sports Radio 550.
I think you have to consider it. I think you have to consider maybe overpaying a running back who can turn those 4-yard gains into 25-yard gains.
Steven Ruiz, recently a visitor to our morning show here on WGR, talking about what we were talking about during the last segment, paying James Cook and what that has to end up looking like. Christian Benford, these players are not about to be free agents. They have finished their third years in the league. None of them, well, Rousseau is a first-round pick, but he's into the fifth-year option. He's on a different timeline. But these four guys from the same draft class here are all through 3 years. Benford, James Cook, Khalil Shakir, and Terrell Bernard. And so you can do extensions with all of them now that they're through 3 years, heading into the walk years of their deals. Benford has to be, to me, like, that's a player you cannot afford to lose. I love all these guys have their roles on the team, and they're all important to me to varying degrees. Like, Benford is, to me, the guy you just – I don't know what I've got at the other corner with Douglas being a free agent. I'm not real interested in going down that road at this point, so I'm going to need a replacement, probably from the mid-tier of free agency or the draft. I don't know. But Benford's due a deal, and the price is just going to keep going up. His estimated annual average value at SpotTrack right now, have you looked at this?
It can't be great.
$23 million a year. Is the estimate. This is, we talked to Mike Giannetti last week on Wednesday about a lot of things. I think we got into Benford. This is one of my favorite features of the SpotTrack website is the market value on each individual player. 4-year, $91 million contract.
Yeah, I get it. I just I think Benford's a fantastic player. He's in the Patrick Surtain conversation? I don't think so. Like, in these contracts, statistics will matter, I think, a lot. And, he doesn't really have the big interception numbers. The advanced stats love him, especially in zone. But even man, like, I think if you're thinking about this extension, it's probably got to be closer to, like, 20. And I think if you're going to try to get him in a number that's palatable, it's got to be this offseason.
Right. It's only going to go up.
Got to be.
I would expect it would only go up next year. So
yeah,
that's a part of the motivation here. Do you want here? I mentioned this cool facet of this SpotTrack website. They have its current contract listed here. And sorry, I got to do this. I got to do this old man thing with my glasses.
You got to count zeros.
I can see my glasses are. I can't see the screen as well. They're anyway. His current contract, his average salary was $963,569, so $963,000. You know where that ranks among NFL players currently in the league?
Just all players or just his position?
All players.
1,000th.
1,272. He's the 1,272nd highest paid player. He's the 143rd paid corner. You want to talk about a value contract? Like that is an all-time banger.
Yeah.
6th round pick. I mean, that's how you land there. You draft a guy in the 6th round, that tempers the rookie contract. You get production that's at the level that you're getting out of Benford, and it's like one of the greatest values you're ever going to see. That's over. Because he arrived this year, and whether they put it off or not, whether they get it down to 20 or it goes at this, calculated market rate according to Spot Track, it's he's going to be one of the highest paid corners in the league. So is he Patrick Surtain? Is he Defensive Player of the Year candidate? No, of course he's not. But his turn is up, and he plays one of the most valuable positions in the sport.
It's becoming even more valuable as well.
And that's it. Like you're going to get paid. So now's the time to do it, I suppose. I mean, just like I said about Cook, they don't have to. They don't have a gun to their head on any of these. They have the year to fiddle with. But, you get that much closer to the open market. I would think a guy, once you get into next season, you'd be pretty tempted to just go to market and see what's out there.
Man, I have to really elevate the conversation about CB2 as maybe being the most interesting storyline of this year. And obviously, defensive line, what you do with Vaughn, some of these I think I might have to elevate what they're going to do opposite of Christian Benford. Isolating the contract extension aside, I don't see a scenario where Rasul Douglas is back. Even unless it's a really low number, he goes to the free agent market, doesn't like what he sees, Bills bring him back for a year and do the dance they did with Levi
Wallace.
Wallace.
Yep.
And they do that dance, couple of 1 year, same thing with Dane Jackson.
Dane
Jackson is you played the little 1 year contract here, but even so, I wouldn't really love them running back Douglas as their starter.
I think they should be trying to get better there.
Yes.
I think he slipped
and
this
younger.
year. Right. Yeah,
Younger.
sure. I mean, that goes hand in hand.
Yeah.
The plays just weren't there. And more often, whether it was his fault or not, I feel like he was at the scene of a lot of plays where guys were looking at each other this year.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Again, it might have been the safety's fault every time.
Lost the foot
but
speed.
just
he was never that super athletic, super fast. He
instincts.
Was. They just were so good,
right.
And I do wonder how you juggle, because if you're going to extend Benford, what's the conversation? You're not going to really have. You're not going to have two corners making 20-something and 18-something.
Right.
It's just not going to happen.
That's why I said you're mid-tier or even lower in free agency. You're in the Levi Wallace market.
Yeah.
I think, right? You're like
and
passable
I think they
starter.
Start drafting more of them.
Yeah. Boy, this is where the Elam pick really
kills
comes
him.
home to
it
roost.
Absolutely kills him.
Just
kills him.
God. Because I want more variety. I want to mix up my coverages. I want to be able to play more man. Oh, guess what? We drafted a guy 3 years ago that is more of a man player than a zone player. But we can't really put him on the field.
Can't play.
It's so tough. So tough. Let's squeeze Sean in here before we hit another commercial timeout. Sean, thanks for calling. You're on the air here on WGR.
How's it going, Bulldog? How's it going, Nate? Hope you guys are having a good day.
Thanks. Hope you two are.
Good,
you are
good.
too.
I don't want to make this sound so matter of fact, but I mean, maybe I don't have my facts right or whatever. But if Cook's asking for 15, and even just to say we got him down to 12, and Russo's on his 5th year, doesn't that equivalent to about what Myles Garrett is going to make per year if we sign him?
Yeah.
I'm wrong.
Yeah, no, it would. That's about, I mean, you're talking about paying Garrett, if you were to acquire him, $35 million a year, and these two players on the 5th-year option, I think Rousseau's at 13. You're not quite there.
It's close.
It's
I
close.
see what you're saying. Yeah,
it's close. And if you re-sign Rousseau, then you're into $25 million a year for Rousseau. So then you're there.
Okay. So that being said, I don't want to be negative towards Benford because he's an awesome player. I love the guy, and I agree we got value for him for as long as we could. But if you're telling me on the open market this guy's going to get, or his spot track number is like 23 million a year, he played in our system, which was mostly zone coverage for the last few years. I understand he was a man corner, but I don't know his stats like right off the top of my head how good he was in man this year. But all of those big contracts for corners are all reserved for awesome man coverage players. Surtain, even in the past, Jalen Ramsey, Terrell Bernard, like they're all man cover corners. So I don't know that I'm willing to risk $23 million hoping Benford can rekindle man coverage after a couple years or something like that, because he hasn't really played in that type of system here. So that was my only concern.
I get it. It's a valid point. I mean, I think what you might be doing is overreacting to the idea of them mixing things up. Like Benford works in their system, and they're still going to play plenty of their system. I think what I think you heard and maybe saw through the playoffs and into the Super Bowl is that they need to have a pivot available and be ready to do that. And that's where, to me, a replacement for Douglas probably comes in. Benford's value to me is borderline irrefutably. He matters to their scheme, and he fits what they want to do, and he's their number one guy. He gets paid. That's it.
They ran more man coverage this year than at any point in Sean McDermott's time here in Buffalo. They brought in previously a defensive coordinator as a senior assistant whose specialty is blitzing and man. They are going to run more man. The reason that they were able to run man, the highest rate that they have in Sean McDermott's time here, is because Christian Benford was able to run man and be a man corner as good as they've had since Sean McDermott's been here. So I think he's like fifth in EPA per play given up in the league in man coverage last year, and he's top 10 in zone. He is the guy that don't throw to, so the stats aren't. Yeah, yes, he's. Right. And I get where Sean's point is. Sean's thinking, I've got to try to find these. You're doing what presumably Brandon Beane's doing. It's like, where the hell do I find the value in all this? And what you can't do is say, we're going to play this game with Christian Benford. We're going to wait. We'll tag him or whatever and tag him again and do that limbo with him. But you're going to end up spending more money on the cap that season than doing it right now before he ascends into what we're all assuming he is. He's 25. This is not a guy at 27. He's an older guy. He's young. The value they've been able to extract the last couple years makes sense. He's absolutely
a guy you pay.
He might be the most important guy you pay.
Yeah.
You cannot, I would say this, you could create a hole at safety, you could create a hole at middle linebacker and feel like you could get past it. I know everybody's mind just goes to, McDermott's the corner whisperer, I don't need great players at corner. They would disagree because they've had a corner that they have paid or spent a first-round pick on the first pick that Sean McDermott was here for was Tre'Davious White. You could tell me that they're really good at fixing but it all is predicated about having at least one guy that's your shutdown guy, and we can get away with someone, we can get away with Levi Wallace. We could get away with Rasul Douglas. We can get away with, Dane Jackson because we've got a shutdown number one, a great slot, and great safeties behind him. They don't have the great safeties right now. Your slot's starting to age. You got to lock in the guy that makes the other stuff work.
Thanks for the call, Sean. Appreciate it very much. 803-0550 is the number. Still time for you if you want to get in before we hit the top of the hour. Nate Geary in for Mike. I am the Bulldog, and you're listening to WGR. Mike, I am the Bulldog. Let's talk to Ben at 803-0550. Hi, Ben. Thanks for calling. You're on WGR.
Hey, thanks for having me on, guys.
You're welcome.
Well, I wanted to talk about Terrell Bernard for a second. I haven't heard anybody call about this, so maybe it's been talked about, maybe not. But this is something I thought about sort of all season long, and you guys made me think about it, talking about the contracts. Terrell Bernard's one of those guys that, if you're watching with friends with the game, or if you're listening to especially the local Buffalo sports media talk about him, you'd think he's one of the best linebackers in the league. And I think at times the eye test tells you, like, wow, this guy is an athlete. He will make, an incredible interception. Obviously, he had that forced fumble during the Ravens game. However, I take this with a grain of salt because PFF isn't perfect, but he is the 165th out of 189 qualifying linebackers per PFF. He has a 47.6 grade, which, would suggest that he's a bum. Now, I don't think he is a bum. I think, like I said, to me, he's sort of the antithesis of Terrell Bernard or Tremaine Edmunds, in the sense that he'll give you a splash play, that'll really change the game, but he's not as consistent as Terrell or Tremaine Edmunds was. And, Tremaine gave you that every down consistency, I think, that Terrell Bernard doesn't give you. So all that to say, my question is, what do you guys make of Terrell Bernard? Because the eye test sometimes really does say this guy is a hell of an athlete. He can really help the team out. And then other times it seems like he's getting pushed out of position. And his PFF grade would suggest that he is not worthy of a major contract extension. So just what do you do with a guy like that? And what do you guys make of him in terms of a player and a contract? But I'll hang up and let you guys talk. So,
all right, Ben, thanks for the call. You want to try this first? I think he gets a contract. I think with Milano being the age he is and a transition coming maybe sooner than we'd even like to Dorian Williams at that spot, I think they're going to value having Bernard there. I don't think it's going to be a huge his spot track estimated contract value is $6.7 million a year. Like that's like double what he's getting now. I can live with that.
Yep. He's clearly your captain. I mean, he's the only other captain with a C on his chest other than Josh Allen. So there's value off the field, but I don't think – I get where he's coming from. Nobody is going to go to Pine and tell you that they think Terrell Bernard's the 143rd best linebacker in football. PFF's great for a lot of things. Grades are not one of them. They've got a lot of analytics that NFL teams buy. They do not buy them for the grades. That's probably what I'll say on that.
All right,
I think he's a darn good player. That will probably get a contract he's earned, and the Bills should do it.
Yeah, I don't. 3 years, 20-some million. Like I don't think it'll be nothing crazy.
And it's not like over the last year, you could say, well, it was only because he was playing next to Milano the whole time.
No,
he did it without Milano next to him.
Right. All right. Thank you for the call, Sean. Appreciate it. The football conversation continues. On the other side, we had a visit with Dan Leberfeld from Jets Confidential. Bring you that right after this on WGR.